Hello! So today we're going to be talking about Assimil Dutch with ease. I want to start off the video by saying this is the 1989 version. I believe they have a newer one from the last few years or so. I think the authors are also different, so if it holds true to how Assimil tends to handle that, instead of just being like an update, it tends to be a fully new book with basically the same layout, but different vocabulary. All the texts tend to be different. I don't know if that's the case this time, but I assume it is. The only downside is it is only available in French. And, for those of you who are not aware, Assimil is a French company, and they publish, maybe 12 books or so, or 12 languages currently in English. I think it looks like they might be expanding that, so, they have up to 60 to 80 in French currently, so I also don't want to forget this later on, so I'll start out saying this now, is if you are interested in learning Dutch, and especially at more advanced courses, they have Assimil, the Nederland de pratique. So it's like an advanced course for Dutch, as you can tell by the way I pronounce that. It's in French, unfortunately only. That's kind of a downside, but it is still usable. It's still absolutely, I use it myself. My French is not great. I don't have a lot of trouble with it. There's vocabulary that's a little bit harder, but the texts are a little more advanced. They tend to be a little more, the reading is a little bit thicker, so it is, which is nice. The other downside, though, is that the book is no longer in print, and the audio for it is kind of hard to find. I don't have the audio, I just have the book. Because it's out of print, it can run up to around $50 American, 50 euros roughly. So that's kind of unfortunate, but, the internet being what the internet is, sometimes you can find a PDF. Don't do anything illegal, please. And yeah, so it's a good course though. So I'd recommend, if you're looking also if you're interested in this course, you could even get the newer course along with this one. And just, if you've already studied Dutch a little bit, or you're a little bit more familiar with it, you can absolutely use the French one with no issue. For the most part, mostly without issue, right? Because there will still be some phrasing and things like that you won't fully get if you don't speak French, but, for the most part, it's not a problem. A lot of times dictionaries will have that entries, and, one of the main things is Dutch is closely related to English, so they are like sister languages, so it shouldn't be terribly hard. There are a lot of similarities. So with all that being said, and getting all that out of the way, we'll start with the review. So this course has 84 lessons, in contrast to the newer one's 100 lessons. I think I forgot to mention that, so kind of important. So typical to the Assimil, it's true to Assimil methods. It starts out with, translation. So you have translations on the right side, and then on the left side you have the text proper in the language you're going to be learning, and they give you they have cartoons, usually saying something in Dutch. It's a little silly. It tends to be, they try to be a little bit lighthearted, so something you can chuckle at, sometimes laugh at. So, if you'll excuse me, it'll usually be something that you've read in the lesson itself, where you see the cartoon. For example, here, the very first word, goedendag, and you'll see that, this is what the little chick is saying. So, it's kind of a way to, they don't add the translation to the cartoon, so sometimes it's a way for you to kind of, what is that word, it kind of helps to see if you get it and whatnot, the context. So, they have the pronunciation. So, thankfully, Assimil doesn't use the IPA system, really. They tend to use the closest approximation into whatever language, in this case, English. So, that's kind of the closest pronunciation of some of the words you get. And they do that so that you have so it's easier to learn. I don't think most people really are familiar with the IPA, or the International Pronunciation, or whatever it is. So that's kind of nice that Assimil does, the closest, approximation and whatnot. And they also offer here, opmerkingen, which is comments, notes. They give you like information here, for example, like dag is less formal and more common than goedendag. Dag is also used for goodbye, but then the vowel is lengthened. So see, they'll give you useful information like that. If you're not familiar, Assimil does not go to grammar heavy. So if you're really looking for grammar, you're going to get that in every 7 lessons and in the notes, but they tend to keep it really simple and straightforward. So sometimes it can be really frustrating if you're looking for something very specific, and Assimil didn't add a grammar to the back. In cases like that, that can be frustrating because some of the courses do not have a grammar in the back, only every 7 lessons. Some courses do have a grammar in the back after the final lesson. So the case for Assimil, if you miss a note or you don't really pay attention, you can miss that. That can be kind of unfortunate at times. So it's always good to read that. Afterwards, they have the exercises, right? So these are translation exercises, which are included on the audio. So like here, mijn zoon is niet te huis, it'll say, in the audio, it will be fully in Dutch. You'll have different voices. I believe they use 4 separate speakers for the audio, which is pretty common for Assimil, and they're usually different age ranges. They always sound like different age ranges and sometimes different maybe dialects or different regions, so that you do get a pretty good idea of what Dutch will sound like. That is the case with their other courses as well. So yeah, then they have a fill in the blanks type of exercise. That is what it is. But something that's really nice about this course in particular that sets it aside from a lot of the other Assimil courses is that this one, as far as I know, this is the only one that actually offers this as a pattern, basically a type of pattern drill, right? So, for example, on the left here it has is, and then it has here various options like uw schoonmoeder, your mother-in-law, uw zoon, your son, uw dochter, and so on and so on. And then they have here in parentheses, which is the one you don't start out with. And then they have here on the right, ziek. So, is uw schoonmoeder ziek? And after you've read through them all, is uw schoonmoeder te huis? Is uw schoonmoeder in bed? Is uw schoonmoeder ook ziek? Then you add in the ones in parentheses. Is uw schoonmoeder nu ziek? Is uw schoonmoeder nu ook ziek? Is uw schoonmoeder ook te huis? So it is it can be a little repetitive, but it is really, really nice that they have that in there because it really helps to drill it in. And you kind of pick the combination. Technically, you could do it at your own order, but it's probably better to do from top to bottom. But it's still, they have different ones. Hoe maakt u het nou? Hoe maakt u het? Hoe maakt uw dochter het? And then they add nu. And then, mijn vrouw maakt het goed. Mijn meneer de vos maakt het goed. So, that's like a third person plural or a third person singular. So without really telling you that's a third person singular, they just kind of let you drill it in passively. That's actually how a lot of Assimil works, is the first half of the lessons, usually 80, even in courses like the 84 one, or like this, even though this is 84, the first 50 lessons are passive. So you're not, you're learning it, but it's more of a passive learning. It's not until you get to the later courses after like 50, 51 that you'll actually start reviewing the previous lessons directly and translating into them. Here's we'll actually go to the 7th lesson. So the 7th lesson here, here's the herhaling and opmerking, so review and comments. And after the first few times of words like that, like these are exercises, this is review and comments, I think they actually stop adding it. Yeah, 28 here doesn't have that. So yeah, so you'll have to actually figure out what that means or refer back to earlier lessons if you can't remember. They go over the things from the previous, 6 lessons, and this one doesn't have it. A lot of the ones in this book do actually, a lot of Assimil courses actually don't, for the 7th lesson, have really text. Increasingly they do. In the case of the Dutch one, for the most part, they do actually have like phrases, and they'll give you Dutch phrases that you've come across and that are actually useful to know. along with the translation afterwards. And like in this case, for the 14th lesson, they do give you some more like pattern drilling stuff, more pattern drills. And the feature here, which is nice, is I believe it's lesson 50? Yeah, here it is. So because it's the second wave, which is the active wave, they'll tell you go back to lesson 1. So they do tell you which lesson to go back to, which lesson to refer back to. Something really nice about this Assimil course, this specific Dutch course, is that most of the Assimil does not follow anyone. Every lesson is pretty much its own little mini story. Sometimes it'll continue on to the next lesson, but frequently that's not the case. In this case, though, it mostly is that way, but they do have characters that they introduce for a few of the lessons, which is kind of nice because it actually gives you a story to follow through for a while, or you get to kind of see, I think it's Dora, Mia, and Vim, and you get to see them or not see them, but you get to kind of hear them and see the context of how they might talk in the office and, things like that. They work together and you get to kind of get an idea of how that works in Dutch. And one of the nice things about the translations exercises here too, by the way, before I forget, is that they do sometimes actually have their own little story in them. That's not always the case. Sometimes they're just random sentences, but some of them in this case are actual, little mini stories or talking about something specifically. So that's maybe somewhat related to what you just read, but not directly. And then you have stuff like this. This course also has several little things like this, like philosophy of life, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different ones, 5, maybe 5? Around 5 or so. So, they're just little mini things, but they give you kind of an idea, like phrases and kind of like, I can't think of the word for it, but, like here, for example, architects cover their mistakes with ivy, doctors with earth, stuff like that. And, so, yeah, it's overall, it's a very great course. This one does not offer a grammar in the back, unfortunately, and it does not have a dictionary like some of the newer courses have. The dictionary is, only pertaining to the vocabulary in the course. It's not like a full-on dictionary, but a lot of the Assimil courses do offer that now with, whatever vocabulary is introduced. So let's say the French-German, it'll be French-German and then German-French, and then... yeah, but this does give you, however, the irregular verbs. So, to bake, baken, ik bakte, ik heb gebakken. So, yeah, they give you a nice little list here. And they also tell you the genders of some of the Dutch nouns. Usually, I believe they mention at the end of the lessons, for example, here are the neuter nouns, because those are different. The feminine and masculine nouns fell together and became common gender, like some of the Scandinavian languages. And so, you basically to separate it out, some of the words are neuter, and you need to know that. So het woord, so not de woord, it's het woord. So they do let you know at the end of the lesson. And for some weird reason, the contents here are actually at the back of the book. It's kind of weird because it's regular for most of it. I don't know if that was maybe an accident, or there's notes afterwards. So, and there's a little note section for you to write things out, which is kind of nice. And there's audio for it, 100% in Dutch. It's very nice. I believe the first 6 lessons, the lessons spoken slowly and then repeated a little bit faster. Afterwards, it starts to slowly increase in speed. So that is Assimil Dutch with ease. Like I said, there's also a newer course available in French, and the older course, if you can get the audio for all those, and you study enough Dutch with this book, or if you study with this book and a couple other ones, the newer French one and the older advanced course should actually be completely accessible to you. I would say that I'm using the advanced course currently, and it's I really don't have problems with it. There are occasionally a few words that I'm not familiar with, and I do have to look at the French translation, which sometimes I get, sometimes I don't. But for the most part, it's, my French is not good at all. So, but it is possible to do that. So yeah, no, if it's, a course you're interested in learning with, it's definitely worth taking a look at. So, or if it's a language you're interested in learning, definitely worth taking a look at. So that's Assimil